Hi, everyone. I am Joanne Chiwawula. I'm the founder and director of African Mothers Health Initiative. I appreciate you tuning in to watch this video. I'm making this for our current donors and for any potential donors, people who are interested in our work with moms and babies in Malawi. So I'm going to briefly go over why we're doing what we're doing, our approach, activities, and outcomes. I'm going to tell you exactly where your money goes when you donate and what we'd like to accomplish in the year ahead. So we exist to address two issues. The first is that there are certain groups of babies who face significantly higher risk of dying within their first year of life than their peers. The group of infants who face the highest risk of dying are babies who lose their moms within the first hours, days, or weeks after their births. So these are babies who are dependent on breast milk but don't have a lactating mom. So there's been studies done in the region in Zambia, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and South Africa. And from those studies, they show that 50 to 80% of these babies actually won't make it to their first birthday. There's no studies that have been done in Malawi, but this is such a common phenomena that people here have a saying that the baby wants to follow the mom. The next group of infants who have a very high risk of dying within their first year of life are multiples. So we're not really sure why, but there's a lot of multiple births in Malawi. These are just spontaneous multiples, twins, and triplets. And for even well-nourished, healthy women anywhere in the world, it is very difficult to provide sufficient breast milk for 3 babies. But in Malawi, where there is cyclical famine, where a lot of these women are living in deep poverty, they really struggle to sustain their infants. So we enroll these babies as well. So the baseline risk of dying is about 5 times that of their mortality rate for their peers. In Malawi, the infant mortality rate is currently around 4%. So meaning that multiples have a 20% risk of dying within their first year. And finally, any baby who doesn't have access to breast milk or has feeding difficulties in this setting is very much at risk for dying early on. So it's not that people don't have the desire or the willingness, but formula is very expensive. A tin of formula can be just under $5, and we're talking about families who are surviving all household expenses for less than $2 a day. So sometimes families will try to sell their own food or try to sell small household items initially to keep up with the formula, but at some point they can't. So that's why these babies are facing such high risk. The second issue that we address as an organization is that of severe maternal morbidities or near miss births. So these are women who survive really difficult deliveries. We know that international statistics capture the number of women who are dying both during pregnancy, during their deliveries, and the first 6 weeks after birth. And that number is high for Malawi still, even though it has come down quite a lot. But the women who have very difficult births and actually survive is far higher, maybe even 20 times that number, even I think 20% of births from some studies. But this is not really captured in any statistics. And they're hard to identify at times. So we can tell that women have had a traumatic birth because they've been perhaps admitted to intensive care unit, or they've had a hospitalization that's lasted weeks rather than days. They may be related to specific conditions of pregnancy and birth, severe infection, ruptured uterus, hemorrhage, fistula, but sometimes it's an exacerbation of a pre-existing condition. As maternal mortality rates decrease, it's been suggested that we can look at maternal morbidities to find out where health systems are failing women. In the past, we really thought that death was caused by delays, mostly on the women's part and the part of the family or the community, so they're not getting to the hospital in time to access care. But now we know that even when women do go to the hospital to access care, sometimes they're not given the appropriate care or given the care that they need in a timely manner. And that's what we see with most of the women who are enrolled in our program. The vast majority of them have delivered in the hospital. Many of them discharge home. They come back to the hospital and they still have these very, very difficult, prolonged illnesses. So severe maternal morbidities is not something that's just related to that immediate part of time right after the birth, but can last for months or even a year or more after the delivery. Many of these women face depression. There's a financial cost. Here in Malawi, when somebody is hospitalized, it's not just the woman receiving care, but she needs a family member to come and provide meals, to wash her clothes. The hospital staff is not doing that. And so if a woman is coming from far away, oftentimes her family cannot stay with her. They have to go back and work their fields so that everyone has food. So many times at the point of discharge, she is completely emaciated. And though the immediate harm or risk to her life that was caused by the birth, maybe that infection is now under control, but the hospitalization is becoming a problem. So she's discharged in a very, very weak state. And because she's discharged in that weak state, when she goes home to a setting again where she has to go and collect firewood, go and draw water, take care of her kids, and she can't do that, she's literally lying on a mat in her home, her children suffer and they may face increased risk of dying over the next year. The woman herself has an increased risk of dying, not just over the first 6 weeks after her birth, but that first year after her birth. So, our mission is to serve the most vulnerable postpartum Malawian women and infants, ensuring that they receive excellent, compassionate care. And our goal is to create a model of care to improve survival among high risk infants and reduce sequelae associated with severe maternal morbidities that may be replicated in other areas. So, we're not trying to become the next CARE or UNICEF or Save the Children. We really want to find a model that works in a low resource setting, that can be replicated either by ministries of health or other organizations that want to take it on. We are doing our work in one district, primarily Longwe District in Malawi. Our approach is very simple. We provide home-based, community-based care. So after babies or women are enrolled in our program, our nurses are going out to where they live and doing assessments there. This is great because they're not just seeing the individual and the symptoms that they're having, but also their living condition, their environment. They're able to mobilize community members if they feel like the family needs additional support. We do provide nutritional support, so in the form of formula for infants who are dependent on either breast milk or formula. Consider this more as a medicine. It's not a substitute for breast milk. These are really babies who don't have access to breast milk. And then when babies start to eat, we provide enriched formula. And for those women who are going home into an environment where they don't have food and they are really malnourished, we also are providing beans and soy. The nurses do a lot of health education, so it's not just about giving those items, but about teaching guardians what to look for, how to prepare formula in a way that's safe, that's not going to cause diarrhea in an infant, and when to access services or to call them. Finally, when our clients are discharged, we do provide a little bit of money that can help them with an income generating project. So just as a brief overview, we founded African Mothers Health Initiative in the States in 2008. So it's a registered 501c3. It's a nonprofit. All donations are tax deductible. And in the same time, I also founded and registered our Malawian partner organization, Chimwemwe Mumbereki, or Joyful Motherhood. So Joyful Motherhood is our only implementation partner. It's our only beneficiary. And sometimes I will use the names of these organizations interchangeably, but just want you to understand that legally they are two separate organizations. AMHI does the fundraising and Joyful Motherhood does the implementation on the ground. I am the individual who is overseeing both of them, and I'm currently based in Malawi. So since 2008, we have cared for over 1,700 babies and over 570 moms. The survival rate in our program from the beginning to date is over 96%. More recently, I think it's a little less than 2% is our mortality rate. So if you just remember those statistics I gave you a couple slides ago, that these babies, especially the orphans, might be dying at 50 to 80%, infants who are multiples, 20%. And here we reduce that risk to, less than 4%. So I feel really great about the work that our nurses are doing. And we're also reducing the impact of severe maternal morbidities on women. We're collecting data electronically and reviewing that data regularly. We've started doing that over the past year, and we ask the women, how are they doing? What are their signs of depression, anxiety? Are they eating enough? And we're seeing that all those markers are improving over the time that we're caring for them. I do want to just let you know that for the babies, we provide care for up to 2 years, and for the moms, it's up to 6 months. So I was asking our nurses to give me a couple stories of clients that really touched their heart. I feel like stories always help us understand context better than just statistics. And this picture here is of our wonderful nurse, Eliza. All of our staff have been with us at least 10 years, which I think also says a lot about their dedication and also their gratification in the work that they're doing. Eliza shared the story of Sarah. Sarah's story is difficult, but I think it really helps to illustrate all the different factors that come together that put an infant's life at risk. I think that for us who are from the West, sometimes it's really difficult to imagine how a healthy newborn could die within just a few weeks. But I think Sarah's story really illustrates that. So Sarah was the third born in her family. Her mom was diagnosed with HIV a couple years before she was born, before the mom became pregnant with Sarah, and she was started on antiretroviral therapy. At some point during her pregnancy, she stopped taking her medication. Eliza didn't know why this happened. So it could have been due to side effects. It could have been because she was feeling better. Oftentimes it's an issue of transportation, that she didn't have the money to actually go to collect her medication. But for whatever reason, she did stop taking her meds, and her health just started to decline. So the birth itself was quite difficult. Sarah and her mother were kept in the hospital for about 3 weeks after delivery. And because Sarah's mom was so sick, she was unable to breastfeed. So at the point that they were discharged, they came directly to our office to try to enroll Sarah so that she could get some support with formula. But Eliza saw her mother and knew instantly, that she was very unwell. She did an assessment of her. Sarah's mother was having difficulty swallowing. She was very swollen, complaining of difficulty breathing. So Eliza sent Sarah's mom back to the hospital immediately, and Sarah went home with her aunt. So the option at that time was really for Sarah to be cared for by her grandmother or her aunt. Her grandmother was an elderly woman and living in urban Lilongwe, but in a very, very poor setting. So she felt that she couldn't manage. So she gave Sarah to her daughter. Sarah's aunt was also, working hard to support herself as a local vendor. So buying things, selling things, which meant she moved around a lot. And because of that, it was very difficult for her to care for Sarah. So she couldn't be there providing, reconstituting the formula, boiling water, doing all the things that she needed to do. So many times she would leave Sarah with her own children who were young teens. So the first time that Eliza went to visit Sarah, she found her in very poor shape. She had actually lost weight. She had diarrhea. And so Eliza said, no, I think we need to transfer care to the grandmother. So the grandmother was really worried that she wouldn't manage. Eliza said she lived in just a very tiny one-room house with no water, no electricity, and really nothing inside. But Eliza told her, this is what we do. We're going to support you with the formula. We're going to teach you how to do it, and gave her that encouragement that she needed to be able to take on the care of Sarah. Sarah's mom was discharged a few weeks later, but unfortunately, within 3 days, Sarah's mom did die. So Sarah and her other sibling, who I believe was 8, were both in the care of the grandmother. Sarah's dad lived in a different village, a bit far from the grandmother, and it's very common when a mother dies that the children will be shifted to the care of the maternal side. And so the dad took the firstborn with him to care for, but he couldn't manage caring for all 3 children or supporting the grandmother, so the grandmother was left with the 2 youngest. So Eliza said, the reason that she really chose Sarah to highlight is because this grandmother who had nothing, did so much and sacrificed a lot, listened to her, took her all her advice, and Sarah is doing really well. So Sarah is now 16 months old and is a healthy toddler doing all the normal things. The grandmother is still struggling, but managing to take care of her grandchildren. So I just think that this story really shows, all the different factors at play. Even though the aunt wanted to take care of Sarah, the grandmother really was wanting to as well. They were all afraid of what would happen to Sarah, and also Sarah's mom, the father, and that relationship, how things turned out. And anyway, we are grateful that we can see Sarah and being a healthy little toddler at this point. So over the past 2 years, we have cared for 423 babies. 279 of those are new admissions, or were new admissions during that time frame. And on average, at any point, we have 125 babies who need formula. As I said, we still do occasionally lose babies. We are always trying to reduce this number. We've had 12 deaths in the last 2 years. Each time we lose a baby, our nurses have a review. We look at what we did, the situation of the family, and really think about, what we can change, if there's something programmatically, or maybe certain interventions or certain education or contacts, so that moving forward, we try not to have repeat experiences. Over the past 2 years, our nurses have conducted over 4,100 visits to babies. So just so you get an idea of why babies are coming into our program, the majority are coming in because they've lost their moms. The next most common reason is because the mom is really sick and unable to breastfeed. So this does include those moms who are hospitalized due to a maternal illness, maybe severe infection, and just can't breastfeed and then lose their supply, but also women who perhaps are on chemotherapy, diagnosed with a cancer, as well as women who have severe psych illnesses. So we do have babies who are enrolled because moms have postpartum psychosis. There's really minimal mental health treatment available, which is very unfortunate. And these women, just are unable to care for their children. About 10%, little less than 10% of the babies we enroll, they do have a living mom, but the mom is not producing any breast milk. So some of these women just don't produce milk. And I will say that our nurses work very hard to teach women how to increase their milk supply if they do have milk, if they're lactating, and help them by providing some nutritional supplements if they feel that they're malnourished and that's the cause of low supply. So these women who are these babies of moms who are enrolled with no breast milk, it's really because they don't have any breast milk. A portion of them are also women who have had severe abscesses, mostly in both breasts bilaterally, and needed procedures, and then their milk was dried up. A little less than 7% of babies are enrolled because they are triplets. And then finally, we have a very small percentage of babies enrolled with a cleft lip or palate prior to their reconstructive surgeries. This picture is just a typical picture of what happens when a nurse goes out on a visit. So this is Anita in the red skirt here, and she's taking the temperature of this little baby who's sitting on the lap of his guardian. And on this particular day, we had nursing students from the College of Nursing accompanying Nita to learn from her, and then the grandmother and some other kids who were just curious. So this is where we go out and provide our care. So Nita also gave me a story of a baby that she wanted to share with everyone. So this is Watson's story. Watson was also the third born of his family, and his mother started to get ill during her pregnancy. She was HIV negative, and she went to seek care at several clinics during her pregnancy. She was complaining of chest pain and headache, neck stiffness, and she was given different treatments, but nothing helped. So as her pregnancy progressed, her condition deteriorated. She was able to carry her pregnancy to term, but at the time of delivery, she was doing very, very poorly. The delivery was normal. She had a healthy baby boy and was discharged with her son. But I guess her family at that point was feeling a little bit hopeless. They had gone to different places, even during the delivery, had told the nurses and the providers there about her condition and never received any adequate treatment. But after a couple weeks, I think 3 weeks at home, she became very sick. And so they took her to a health center. But before anyone was even able to assess her, Watson's mom died. So at that point, the grandmother, being very distraught, not knowing what to do with the baby, was really just looking for help anywhere. The baby had not been breastfeeding well since birth and had lost weight over those first few weeks. So just by chance, she came across another woman who had a baby whose mother died. She was caring for a baby whose mother died, and she was enrolled in our program. So this was the woman who actually brought her to our office and got them enrolled. And her arms are the ones carrying Watson in that little picture. So that was really wonderful. And this family lived in a very rural area, a pretty good distance from town. Anita enrolled the baby and gave them a few tins of formula and told the grandmother that she would find them in a couple days. So she said that when she got to the village, they had a decent home, typical village house with a thatched roof, but there was literally nothing inside. So it was the grandmother, an 8-year-old boy, 3-year-old child, and then Watson, the baby. And the grandmother was actually lying on a grass mat in the house, just covered by a little cloth. With malaria herself. So she was really sick. And then the infant and the 3-year-old were there, and the little boy was playing outside. But basically, there was no one else to help. She tried to look for neighbors, community members, but the closest person to them was actually a pregnant woman. So she was not really in a position to be providing such intense care for a family. So Nita took the older sibling, his name was Ammon, and told him that he was going to need to help his baby brother, and she taught him how to provide kangaroo care. So that's where you put the baby skin to skin and wrap the baby, usually to the mom's body, with a cloth. But she did this to the 8-year-old brother, and he really, listened to her and paid attention what he needed to do to care for his baby brother. And he did it. So the next time Nita came to visit, she found the grandmother had recovered and was just so incredibly grateful. And the big brother was really proud of what he had done. The little baby had gained weight and everyone was doing much better. One thing that we've been doing, we have a donor who has provided funding so that we're able to give a little bit of funds each time to each beneficiary that we visit. So we give them the equivalent of $5, and they can buy food or pay for transportation, or if they need to buy a kid a pair of shoes, whatever they need to do with that money is available for them. So we began to give her that little bit of a stipend, although Nita said that the house really needs so much more support than even what we're able to do. But the grandmother is doing a great job, and the baby has been growing well. So Watson is now 10 months old, and the 8-year-old boy is enrolled in school and going to school. When I asked Nita what else she would like to convey to donors, she said, she really pleaded that we could have a separate fund that could be available for families who are really living with such a deep endemic poverty, so that we can provide a little extra nutritional support, not just to the baby or the mom that's enrolled, but also to the family. So giving them some beans or soybeans. So moving on to our mother care program, over the past 2 years, we have cared for 70 women. 51 of those were new admissions. And 100% of them experienced severe infections plus other complications following their births. So some of them had their wounds of C-section actually open and needing intensive wound care. Some of them with fistulas, some of them with severe anemia because of hemorrhage and then poor, slow recovery. 40% of the women that we enrolled actually lost their babies during the birth process. So even though they may have surviving children at home, many of them actually were first-time moms and had no living baby to bring home. The majority of the women that we enrolled had emergency hysterectomies, so meaning that in order to save their lives, they had to have their uterus and their ovaries removed, which puts them into menopause even at a very young age. Not only that, but obviously they're no longer able to have any additional children. And the average age of these women who had a total hysterectomy was only 25 years old. In the past 24 months, we visited 460, we made 463 visits. So I think just with this little brief overview, you can really understand why these conditions can lead to severe depression. And I think so many of us have more information about depression and all the ripple effects that can cause in someone's life or in the life of a family, not just, for a short time, but over the long, long time. So I want to tell you what happens with your money, what impact your donation has. So we know from the data that we're gathering that we are reducing the deaths among high-risk babies. So conservatively, if we say that the babies we enroll might have a 20% risk of dying in their first year of life, and now we've reduced that to less than 5%. And second, we're reducing the impact of severe maternal morbidity. So these women are having faster physical recovery with the nutrition and the education they're receiving, improved mental health by the visits and the counseling from the nurses, and improved nutrition. These are a few pictures of our program graduates. Some of them, we've been in the same little tiny office space for 10 years. So sometimes we have people who come by the hospital, we're on the hospital campus, and just bring their kids to say, look at your kids, look at your babies. The 4 of these children all lost their moms very soon after birth, and they are all school age and doing really well now. So we're so proud of that. All right, time to go a little bit more into the money aspect. So African Mother Health Initiative provides 78% of the funding of Joyful Motherhood. So that's the U.S. organization, provides most of the funding for Joyful Motherhood, the implementing partner. Our U.S. budget is $118,000. Joyful Motherhood budget is actually $151,000. And Joyful Motherhood, we do write grants, and we're receiving funds from Legacy Collective. So they are responsible for giving us the money that we give out at each visit, and also the income generating money. The Siegel Family Foundation gives us $19,000 a year, and that goes mostly for, it's actually unmarked funds. So they can use it as for anything, for operating reasons, for programmatic things, but also they do a lot of support for Joyful Motherhood, just capacity building. And then we have some local donors. So every year we submit our taxes in the States, and every year in Malawi, we hire an independent accounting firm to conduct annual audits. So I feel very comfortable telling you all that your money is going where we promise it is going. And if anyone wants more information about that, I'm happy to share. So just looking, if you are donating online or donating in the States, this is where the money is really going. So in the States, we keep about 4% of what you donate there, and that's going to things like registration in different states, going to fundraising costs. We don't have any paid staff in the U.S. We have a bookkeeper, a volunteer board. The rest of the money is going to Malawi. So the vast majority of the money is going directly to the program expenses. The largest percentage is to our programmatic staff. So as I mentioned, it's not just about handing out the beans or the formula, but really about the education that accompanies that, and the regular visits, about the relationship that the nurses build with these individuals. All of that helps us achieve the outcome that we have. The next largest portion of money is for formula. So I said 125 babies at any point are dependent on formula, and it's almost $5 a tin. So if you think about a baby who really needs between 6 and 10 tins a month, that's a huge percentage of our budget. And we're always trying to figure out how we can procure formula a little bit more cost efficiently. And if anyone has an idea or wants to make a large donation for formula, that would be wonderful. Next is direct support. So this means those cash handouts, those stipends going directly to our beneficiaries, or the beans that we give out. Then we have vehicle expenses. Our driver is going out almost 5 days every week and driving on really rough roads. So this goes to maintaining our vehicle and to fuel. And then finally, the other costs are things like registration within the country, the taxes that we pay, bank charges. We have a part-time accountant, a part-time data manager. So all of those other items are in that purple pie piece. So, looking ahead over the next year, most importantly, we just want to be able to continue our services within the district where we're working right now. We have a great working relationship with the Ministry of Health. Our office is located just next to the district health offices, and we've had a couple meetings with them recently. And every time they ask us, are you thinking about terminating your services at any time soon? It's very common for international organizations to have a program that has a certain life expectancy, 4 years, 6 years, and then they want to hand it over to the Ministry of Health. Well, there is really no funds in the Ministry of Health to take this over at this time. So we just want to make sure that we can continue to support the type of mom and babies that we serve until, we would love it if these problems no longer exist, if we don't have moms suffering from these conditions, and we're sure that all babies who are born healthy are going to survive their first year. But until that's a certainty, we want to be here to provide the support. We are always looking to improve our programs, doing monitoring evaluation. As I mentioned, we do have electronic data that we are reviewing continuously to really make sure that our interventions are having the impact that we are anticipating. And if there's any way that we can tweak them or improve things or become more cost efficient without losing our impact, that's what we're going for. So we are constantly doing that. I believe there is room for advocacy and research. There's not a lot of talk about severe maternal morbidities, and certainly I think even among people who are focused on infant survival, we don't look at really what are the highest risk groups and how do we address these issues. So, I think doing more research within Malawi to find out how many babies and how many women really need our services would be very useful to getting more attention and perhaps more funding, not just for our organization, but perhaps other organizations who would like to address these issues. We're always looking to expand partnerships, both locally and internationally. We're always looking for and applying for grants. And finally, if we can fundraise to support our baseline budget, we really want to improve our office space. We're occupying one small room, and like I said, it's on the hospital campus, and then we have a small outdoor space, and right now we just have a tarp that's covering some benches where the nurses are doing their assessments and enrollment of new babies and moms, and it's working, but during the rainy season it's less than ideal. I can show you a couple pictures, but if anyone is interested in funding that in particular, we would be so happy about that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your attention. All the donations that you give are tax deductible, and we will be able to match your donation. I'm going to go ahead and extend this deadline for another 2 weeks. So to mid-December, any donation that is made up to $10,000 will be matched. We have a generous donor who has pledged $10,000. You can donate online, so either using this QR code, it will take you to the same site, africanmothers.org/donate, or if you'd like to mail a check, you can find our address on that same site, or you can copy it down here. If anyone has any questions, obviously this is a recording, so we don't have a live Q&A, but if anyone has any questions or wants to reach out to me, my personal email is Joanne, JOANNE, @africanmothers.org. Thank you so much. I'm just going to show you real quick our pictures of our office space and then our outside office where we're caring for moms and babies. All right. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.